to sort of see myself sitting in an attic doing games on that again. I love it. I think it'd be great. I actually miss programming. So,
The next category is value for money, and obviously this is a picture of you with your Ferrari, which you famously bought from the result of one of the lawsuits. I mean, we won't go into exact details, but do you think you're better off having pursued the legal action?
Yeah, but I get pissed off with constantly having to defend my rights. And the bottom line is, if you make something that makes someone else a lot of money, for some reason they want to squeeze you to that extra 1% and take everything. And that Ferrari there, that's a 355. That was nothing to do with games. That was because I had another Ferrari that was bought from Ferrari UK, and they sold me a pup. And I took them to court for negligent misrepresentation, and I'm allowed to say that now because the gagging order's ended. And the settlement was a 355. Nothing to do with games. And the first one I ever had was down to US Gold, ripping me off on drop zone. It took 4 years to win it, and eventually Jeff Brown, who was running US Gold at the time, I had to go and see him because we got him into a corner, and he said, "Oh bloody hell, come on, how much do you want?" And I just whipped out this sales brochure from this Ferrari dealership and said, "One of those." And that's how it happened. No kidding.
And do you think it affected how you dealt with other things in the future?
Yeah, it seems to me that it doesn't matter how hard you try and get a sensible contract, someone somewhere, if there's money involved, will always try and get their slice of the pie. Especially anything to do with system 3.
So then, overall, looking back over your career, have you enjoyed it?
The games bit, not the legal shit. Yeah. What does the future hold? Ooh. God knows. We are actually working on 2 new games at work, but I can't tell you what they are yet. So.
I mean, that must be a constant problem, the sort of the non-disclosure agreements and that sort of thing. You want to tell people about it and get the word out there, but you can't because you're signed up.
Yeah, to some extent. But I mean, it's like we've just shown the video for Speed Zone, but it's dated December 2008. The game is actually called something else in Europe, and I'm not actually allowed to mention it. Although I'm sure you all know what it is. So, but I'm perfectly at liberty to go on about the American one. It's lawyers. So, yeah.
Okay then, would you like to open it up to the floor? Are there any questions for Archer? Come on, someone else have a question.
Yeah, there was a guy over there earlier asking me how Darren Brown did that lottery prediction thing the other night, so...
You mentioned there was 2 names for the game, Speed Zone. Why is that?
Well, it's called Speed Zone originally because the basic plot of the game was about speeding in the zone. Because when you're doing 400 miles an hour, you don't blink. And if you do, well, you fall off the side. In Europe, we found out that there was a toy manufacturer that makes toy tractors in Germany, and they called it a Speed Zone tractor. And there's a trademark, yeah, Dash Speed Zone. And Bethesda's lawyers, and they've got an army of lawyers, as I've discovered recently, thought, no, can't have that. And the word speed they didn't like because of the film Speed, which has nothing to do with games, so they're just getting very worried about everything. So after 6 iterations, it came down to being called Wheelspin, and it's not my choice, because their first choice was Ready, Steady, Go. I'm not kidding. And the second choice was Nitro X Races, something like that, which was a bit more better, but then there was a trademark dispute on Nitro X, and it just went on and on and on. Then Wheelspin, sort of defeats the object, really. It's a bit frustrating. Yeah, but that's why it's called Wheelspin. So.
Okay, we got any more questions?
Recipes, gambling tips.
George, shout.
Yeah, shout.
From a developer's point of view, how has the industry changed since you first started making games?
It's full of lawyers. The publishers have got a lot more difficult to deal with. That's for sure. And in the early days, it was like, yeah, we'll have that, put it in a box, get it out the door. Now it's one huge engineering exercise as to how you market something. And you've got people like EA who believe if you spend £2 per unit marketing it, no matter how crap it is, they can sell it. And unfortunately, there's a lot of games that go out like that. And the reason for that, the background reason, is because they have shareholders who want to see share growth, rather than people who want to play games, which is a bit frustrating.
Any more?
Come on, it must be.
Do you think the iPhone and the indie market is more towards the future, where the game business is going to go?
Well, the good thing about the iPhone is that it's the games on it are there's a lot of them, and they're relatively cheap, and you can self-publish. You for once do not have a publisher telling you how to create your game. And I do see iPhone, maybe PSP Go, and God knows how many other applications, little machines coming out. Yeah, and I do see that market exploding.
But then you do then have Apple's own policies to deal with.
Yeah, to some extent, but some of the problems with Apple have been to do with for example, the Commodore 64. Someone owns the rights to the operating system, and they're not given them.
I think it harks back to the kind of the 8-bit days when people used to sell
Yeah, but the problem you've got these days is Apple don't want certain applications on their phone that involve, tits and bum and drinking and religious stuff and all the rest of it. So they have to have some sort of control. Whereas 25 years ago, I remember seeing various shareware games on the 64 that involved donkeys and joysticks and stuff. That was a lot of fun. So,
Paul.
You recently became a father 2 years ago. My question is firstly to say, would you encourage or discourage him going into the industry? And secondly, is there any truth to the rumour that you were going to call him Archie Mclean's son?
You're clutching at straws there. No, I've only got one son that I know of, and that was semi-planned. And I don't know what he wants to do yet, but one thing I do know is only 2 years and 1 week old, and he knows how to say Lamborghini. And I'm not kidding, and it wasn't me that taught him how to say it, so yeah, that is strange. As for his name, my son's name's called Zach, and it was going to be called Neo or Zeke. And recently I met with Phil Harrison, Sonny guy, and he named his son Cosmo, which was another option. And all of these names relate to games, believe it or not. And if you've ever heard of a pinball versus video game called Zeke's Peak, that's where the name came from. So, yeah.
Well, would you encourage him or discourage him going into the industry?
Well, it's a few years away yet. Let's wait and see what happens. I think between now and then we're going to get, virtual dildonics or something. I mean, God knows what's going to happen in the next 20 years. Dildonics. You don't know about dildonics? It's sort of a mind link for a Pamela Anderson simulator. So you should get with the times, mate. That's where it's going. Yeah, it's a feel around thing.
Is any more questions? There's one more there.
Go on, shout out.
International Karate Plus on the 8500. If you just off reset, it came back. I don't remember any other game doing it.
Is it a soft reset?
Yeah, you press the 3 keys to restart it.
Yeah.
Normally you get the workbench from. Your game just carried on.
Yeah, I guess because I grabbed the NMI vector for stopping people doing certain copy protection stuff.
Oh, right. I thought you were just having a joke. Everything else
No, but the game did reset. There was about 50 different words you could type in, including some dodgy ones.
Yeah.
And it gave you a warning, but on the second occurrence, it would reset the whole machine.
Right.
But it would actually boot the game again, so it's just a slap in the face.
I was just wondering if nothing else did that, so I was wondering what made you decide, I'll make it so you can power it on.
It's probably just a mistake I thought was fun. As a lot of games were in them days. Does anyone here remember what I used to write in Zap 64? I used to do a month-by-month developer diary thing. Okay, I'll tell you the story. People like Andrew Braybrick and Ruby's Day Out, do you remember those? He used to do a developer diary. And there was two things I did. One was I wrote an article about how to double the speed of your Commodore 64. And the cursor was flashing twice as fast. And it was a great big long series of peaks and pokes. All it was doing was changing the timer value for the cursor. But a lot of people wrote to Zap Towers and sort of said, "Oh my God, my machine's twice as fast." And then I did this one where I can't remember how I did it. I basically said, if you poke this value and poke that value, then rerun the game. It's a bit tricky to get it working, but it's worth it when it happens. And actually, what it was doing is it was completely clearing the memory, and you had to load the game again off a cassette. And it was a real bastard thing to do, really. A lot of people wrote in about that as well, saying that they couldn't get it to work. So, there you go, bit of fun.
were there any other hidden things in your games that no one's ever found?
Yeah, probably.